All right. Our second column is multiple means of representation. So this is the purple column. And the idea here is you provide different pathways to receiving the content. All right. The guidelines are multiple options for comprehension, options for language and expression. And that includes symbols for you folks in the sciences. And also multiple options for perception. Right? How do they organize that information in their head? Do they use organizers? Do they use graphics? Do they use videos? Things like that. Our case study for representation is from Peggie Constantino, who was also in the UDL workshop. And she's going to talk about how she leveraged different modalities.
Building in a variety of access points for all of the content in terms of introduction. So seeking out different opportunities for video, using Panopto voiceover for lecture, discussion boards, circle of friends, small group activities was really helpful. Finding some visual representations of some of the models that we were talking about in examples really supplemented the text reading in those pieces. And purposefully identifying those entry points in each module. The visual models they found very helpful. A lot of them enjoyed those quick short videos, maybe a TED Talk or some other example from practice that reinforced what they were reading. Even though the textbook had a lot of case study in it and was a short narrative and a story, some of them didn't find that to be enough. They really enjoyed listening rather than reading and supplementing that experience. Some of them, I gave them an opportunity because the check for understanding was not graded. It was really for their own feedback and mine to see where they were. Several of them took this strategy of using it as a pre-read, and others used it as their check. And so I found them using it in a variety of ways when given the option to do that. And then in checking their work, you could see where several of them had gone back and tried it again. And others had left feedback that they found this very useful as kind of a pre-reading, a preview of the reading and following along. I found some of them were relying too heavily on the video, and it's not enough. You know, it was illumination. It wasn't the content knowledge in entirety. So what I found was in ordering their experience and then attaching maybe a Padlet or some other Google Doc of a slide presentation to check that they got the content seemed to really help. And the feedback from them too was that activity, in addition to just viewing, was really helpful. And it was a way for me to check for understanding too without a large project. And they did really well on it. And some of my colleagues, I've harvested some of their activities that they came up with too about building some of these real short not projects, but short activities attached to what they view, as well as just the viewing of itself. In the online course, it looks very different to remove things because we're really picking what do we need to illuminate and where we need to focus. You know, we want them to be independent readers and we have expectation for content, but really using those activities to target those areas that are the high priority objectives, the meat of the matter, if you will. In my on-campus course, where we meet every week, I'm using that to push forward the in-class discussions. I'm using it to flip the classroom, literally. Doing a lot more Socratic seminar when we're together to talk about the things they've experienced and explored. So I'm taking out more of that, like I said, the discussion board, the writing, the piece, stretching out some of that work to be more 4 blogs, 4 different blog entries across the semester rather than some kind of writing every week, and moving it more to case study, practical application, opportunities for creativity in the classroom when we're together. And that seems to be working very well.
And thanks, Peggy. So you guys have been at this for 32 minutes, so you're experts in UDL. You should be able to tell me from the video you just saw, in that case, what pathways did you notice that Peggy implemented to represent the content in different ways? What did she do? Yeah.
Google Docs, slide presentations.
Yep, so the actual vehicle, or the platform you might say, changed. So she used presentations, collaborative documents. All right. What else did you notice?
Not the thing.
That's right. She used video vignettes, kind of like this, to help introduce and reinforce. And what she found was the students would vary how they use them. Some of them would use that to review or maybe prepare for the reading. Some of them would use it like a pre-reading kind of, or a post-reading questionnaire to see if they understood it. And so there are ways to use that same instructional material in different ways. So think about that. If you decide to do a short video, or if you decide to do a collaborative document, it might not be for one instructional goal. You might meet several of those goals and have several uses for that same piece of material. So if you put the half-hour or hour needed into filming a screencast or creating an instructional module, you might get hours and hours and hours of use out of it because the students can then decide what works best for them, all right? Because we can't pause and rewind you live, but you can do that on video, for example, all right? You can't cut and paste you, but you can do that in a document, all right? So pulling this out, again, looking at the purple column here for representation, she did leverage visualizations. You mentioned that. That's a way to provide multiple ways to comprehend. All right. She used auditory information as well and varied between visual and auditory. And again, you can add to that things like how they perceive. So you can use captions, organizers, and that kind of thing. And then she illustrated the same points through various media, so multimedia. So you might have a video that supplements the reading. You might have a lecture or a screencast that goes along with an article. They're covering the same thing, but they're supplementary. So I thought that was a great case study.